In other videos, I explain how you can get an idea and what you do when you get it. The first thing that you do is you write an abstract, and I explain how to do that in a separate video. Now you have already an abstract. What is the next stage? You write a skeleton. A skeleton is what I call a tentative table of contents. Try to imagine how all the titles and subtitles in your final paper, whether it's an MA thesis or a BA thesis, would look like, and then write them in a Word file. I will explain why you do that and how exactly you do that in this video. My name is Shai Dotan. I'm Associate Professor of International and Public Law at the University of Copenhagen Faculty of Law, and this series of videos is designed to help you improve your English and your research skills. Why is it so important to spend time on writing a good skeleton at the beginning of your research? Let me explain. Many years ago, I read an edition, a very early edition of a series of books, How to Study. By the way, if a book has this title, get it. I'm not speaking about the particular book, but that's exactly the kind of books that you can use in order to get better. This particular book was a part of a very successful series. It had a lot of interesting insights, but one of his insights was completely outdated, even for my time and even many years ago as I read it. And this suggestion was the following. It says, it's very difficult to type on a typewriter. Nobody uses a typewriter anymore. I think I saw a typewriter once in my life. So what do? You prepare well before you write. And how do you do it? You use the following method. You're using flashcards, so a card. As you read, you do your research, you think of ideas, and every day you write flashcards. Not one, but 10, 15, 20 flashcards a day. And you collect them. You have hundreds of flashcards, and you put them all in a box. And you carry this box with you to the library anywhere. You don't have a laptop computer like we have today. Then you go into a big room and you organize all the flashcards on the ground, one after the other, in a reasonable order. It's kind of difficult to imagine doing something like this, but that's exactly what people did. And then you take the flashcards and you put them in the box in the order that you think is correct. There would be all kinds of gizmos that would help you to do that, like metal bars that would go inside the flashcards. And then you have all your ideas in order. So then when you sit in front of a typewriter, you can just do the writing. Now, why do I tell you all this story? Obviously, don't get a typewriter. You can use a computer. Don't use flashcards. It's very time consuming. But the point is that you want to separate two parts of your process. One part is researching and thinking and planning, being creative, having different ideas, breaking them down to sub-ideas. And the other is a part of writing, where you want to focus on actually making a clear and beautiful narrative that you write. If you're going to try to do these two things at the same time, it's going to be a mess, even for experienced scholars. Experienced scholars, either by the four methods that I described, either intuitively or exactly the method that I'm going to teach you, they don't do that. They realize that over time. But even somebody with a lot of experience, if you force them to read a little bit, think a little bit, be a little bit creative, and then write it down beautifully, it's not going to work. And most importantly, when you're doing the research and you're organizing your ideas, it's much easier to know how to organize them, just like you do with flashcards. You decide where this flashcard deserves to be, here or there. So you're going to tell me, we have Control-C for Control-V. What is the problem? There's a very big problem in moving paragraphs from one part of a dissertation or thesis to the other. I can tell you this from my own experience. When I finished my dissertation, I had to move chapters around after discussing with my supervisor. It took me months to do that. Months that I had to spend because every paragraph had to fit in a different place and the entire context is different. And then you describe certain things that you want to describe at the beginning. If you describe them at the end, you need to change and reorganize your ideas completely. And that's very time consuming. And not only is it time consuming, it destroys the level of the writing. The writing will not be flowing. It will not be easy to read. Once you are moving a segment of a text, a significant segment of a text, several paragraphs, to another area, I refer to it as trying to chop a person apart and then put them together, sew them together. It's possible to do that, But don't expect the pencil to be very healthy if you take out the heart and put it back inside. So the same is true for a text. If you are breaking it apart too much, it's going to be very, very damaging for its quality. Sometimes it's inevitable. I'm not saying you can prevent it completely, but if you follow this method that I'm going to describe to you, you can reduce the need to move paragraphs around very, very significantly. So imagine that you're speaking about ideas and the order of these ideas, and you have chapters, so you can call them in Roman numerals, for example. These are the big chapters. When you have sub-chapters, you may even have a third level or even a fourth level. Try to be as precise and as divide to as many possible ideas as you can. Now, I'm not recommending, for example, to have many levels of sub-chapters if it's only a few at the end. This can be very misleading. If you have 5 levels, it's a bit difficult to follow. But if you have 3 levels, it's usually good to work with, and that's usually what you have in the table of contents. You usually don't have more than that. And this allows you to have, for example, for a thesis, usually around 8 chapters, each of them divided to around 3 sub-chapters, and each of them divided to 2 or 3 sub-chapters, or sometimes a little bit more. Once you do that, you also get a sense of how does the work spread? How does the ideas work together? And am I too focused or maybe too broad? Because if you have 16 chapters in the highest level, then that's a problem for you in any thesis. It's too much. If you have just 3, then maybe you should spread it around and try to think about how ideas break to small ideas or have a case study or things like this. So this gives you a sense of how many sub-chapters you still need to add. So work on that, and you write these chapters and sub-chapters, you move them around, and always think about the order in which the final assignment will be written. This is your first goal, but you are mimicking the table of contents of a final result. Imagine that it's already published as a book in a great press. You look at the table of contents, you want your document to look as much as possible to this imaginary table of contents. If you're not sure what should be the order of the ideas, one tip that I recommend for you is think about the order in which you want to write your ideas. Because my experience shows that if you write step after step in the right order, right linearly in a way, from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3 to chapter 4, then it's going to make for better writing. So if you, for some reason, you're not sure how the ideas should be arranged, try to think how you would like to write them. Usually, that's how the reader should read them as well. So this would guide you towards writing this table of contents. If you ask me whether you should write it in English, if the assignment is in English, of course, or in your mother tongue or in the language of the country in which you're writing, my recommendation would be if the assignment is due in English, please write the table of contents in English. It's an important preparation for the writing itself. And what you want to do is you want to write titles that are very informative, and these will be the title of the final assignment. So if you have a dilemma, always choose being more informative over being more catchy to the eye. That's a general rule for all table of contents. It will especially help you as you construct this table of contents as well. If at the end, when you written the entire assignment, you want to change some of the subtitles to make it a bit less informative because they are very catchy and they combine into a certain theme that is interesting for you, that's manageable, even though I would not recommend it unless there's really good reasons to diverge from this rule. And now you have it. You have a skeleton, you have a temporary table of contents, and this will really help you to break your idea down and see how it spread. If before in abstract our aim was to make a funnel with very sharp point, here our point is to spread so that we see how the ideas are organized in a certain narrative. What do you do when you're finished? You have a skeleton already. First of all, I would recommend that you share the skeleton and the abstract with your supervisor as soon as possible. Supervisors may not be willing to read too many pages, but most supervisors will be very happy to read. And if you're really stuck and you thought about what the order of ideas should be and how you should write them, and you're not sure, produce 2 skeletons and discuss both of them with the supervisor and help them to get you to decide which one is better. If you can't get the supervisor, just discuss it with a friend. Even if a friend is not very responsive, the very act of preparing for this meeting and posing the question would guide you toward the answer in almost all cases. You have a skeleton. What is the next step? Save it on a Word file. Then copy and paste the text to another file, which is going to be the main file of your assignment itself. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go to the tab in Word that has headings. And you're going to designate every level of title according to the appropriate level of heading. So titles that are in the highest level, heading 1, then heading 2, then heading 3. Don't be lazy, do it for the entire table of contents or skeleton. Then what you're going to do is you're going to produce an automatic table of contents for Word. This will put this full table of contents right at the beginning of your file, and then as you write your assignment, you'll be able to update it easily throughout by pressing on it and asking it to update, and this would show how the title updates. You can also update only the page numbers if you didn't share the titles, but you added text which moves the page numbers in which the titles appear. And then comes the interesting part. As you write, and I will speak about it separately when I speak about writing the thesis, but I just want to show how effective this tool is right now. Under the subtitles, the lowest level that you have, you can still divide your ideas more. And most importantly, you can separate between the process of thinking, being creative, and spreading your mind to different issues, and the process of writing, where you need to be precise and to articulate your ideas in the clearest possible way. And how do you do that? What you do is you write, even under the lowest level of heading, bullet points. Bullet points, you basically put a point, you can number them, so you can make a numbered list, you can put a bullet point, it doesn't matter. And then you write what you want to write in this text. And I would always highlight it in a different color. And what I like to do is I like to highlight it in several colors. So for example, the main text, when I deal with theoretical ideas, will be highlighted by yellow. If I want to address for a particular paper in a particular point, then I would highlight it by, let's say, red. I'm just inventing now. If I want to address a judgment, for example, then I would highlight it by yellow, by green, and so on. So I can highlight in different colors. And then I would look at the page and I would see all the ideas organized all the way to the end. Now, the bullet points are not written for beauty. You can always change them as you go along. And what I want you to do, and again, I will speak about it in a different video as well, is I want you to write bullet points for the entire length of your analysis, with emphasis on the closest chapter that you're about to write. So chapter 1, before you start to write it, should have bullet points that are very thorough, like 95% of the thinking has already been done. At this point, chapter 8 will only have 30% of the thinking, but as you get closer to it as you write, it will have more and more. Again, just like you can do with the subtitles in the table of contents, but you move them around, just like people did once with flashcards, you do the same with bullet points. You move the bullet points around, and you change the text that you write in them. Now, if you would ask me, should I write the bullet points in English as well? I would say it's less crucial than the titles, but I would usually recommend, if you can write them in English, please do that. This will help you. If, however, you feel that you can write very quickly in another language, and you are facing a problem that is unsolvable in English or any other particular issue, you can write it also in another language. That's perfectly fine. Also, if you're citing judgments from a different jurisdiction, you can write it a little bit. It's only for you. It's for you to organize your ideas. So what I mean by that is that the table of contents of a skeleton becomes a mega skeleton, where basically every idea almost is planned ahead. Every sentence, every paragraph is planned ahead, and therefore once you start to write, and you write now your real text without the highlighter, everything is ready and you can write in the most articulate and beautiful way possible.